This is the Hartford Online Radio Network. 21st Century Audio. Delivered on thehorn.com.
Good evening, folks. It's Tuesday evening. It's the Hartford Online Radio Network on thehorn.com, and this is Open for Business, the show that features business owners, managers, CEOs, discussing everything and anything that has to do with running a business in the 21st century, and specifically here in 2012. I'm Tommy Russo. I'm owner of L&R Productions. I want to remind you of our sponsors. Our sponsors are Gateway Financial Group, the accounting firm of Budwitz and Meyerjack, Sharpen Technologies, and CentralCTDental.com. And Central CT, we want to mention that there are three doctors, Drs. Camp, Sambora, and Lupini. Our guest this evening, which I'm excited to say, and a little shout out to our friend Ken Cook, is Bonnie Del Conte. Bonnie, welcome, and welcome for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Tom.
Oh, that's great. So, Bonnie is president and CEO, as I mentioned, of CONNSTEP. Tell us a little bit about CONNSTEP, and then I want to, as we talked about before the show got going, I want to hear a little bit about your career that got you to this point as being the president and CEO.
Okay, thanks. CONNSTEP is an organization, 501c3, in Connecticut that provides technical and business solutions that have been proven to have immediate and sustainable long-term impact on manufacturers and other businesses to help them remain competitive and to grow in both the local and the global markets. We offer services to our clients that provide impacts such as job retention, job growth, new and retained sales, innovative processes, process improvements to not only affect their bottom line, but help to establish top-line growth into new markets, new sectors, new products, and innovative practices.
Now, for our listeners and viewers, how long has CONNSTEP been 501c3?
CONNSTEP's been incorporated since 1994, and we're proud to say after 16, 17 years, we're still the same organization, but with a little bit different twist today. We originally started off to bring some technologies to manufacturing companies, and then later on took the challenge of making companies lean and doing process improvement. And now we've taken that to a more enterprise level and have added the top line growth and innovation to push those good companies that are sustaining and have best practices to push them to that next level and make them very productive and innovative in this new and global market.
It sounds like the value proposition for businesses here in the state of Connecticut is a significant one, because many of the points that you just brought up, I have to believe businesses that are including tuning in right now are saying that's exactly what we need.
Sure. We've had and we're still retaining jobs is certainly a factor with many businesses that have had either to downsize or to really rein in to stay in and compete in this economy that's been so sluggish. But there are many businesses that have been doing this for a while and have enjoyed best practices and have stuck to a strategic plan and stuck online and worked really hard. And now they're in a good situation in a diverse climate that they could actively take this to the next level and grow and prosper.
So asking you to take out your crystal ball here for a moment. 2012, I mean, depending, and we talked about this a little bit before the show got going, depending on what network you tune into, what newspaper you're reading, you're hearing, projections for this year going into 2013 to be robust, in other cases anemic. What are your thoughts and feelings?
Well, we've got some fairly strong manufacturing market sectors in the state of Connecticut, thus being aerospace, that, I just saw some projections recently for, this year for 2012 and 2013 of, really great sales and really great areas of opportunities. There are some businesses that, again, are sluggish, and they're hopefully doing some best practices to remain and compete, and maybe this won't be their year. I think, again, it's where the foundation of your business has been, how steadfast you've been, how many years you've been in business, what opportunities you've taken to heart and really taken as a good business practice, and how you feel about the environment in the state of Connecticut as well as the environment nationally, especially on the manufacturing sector.
That's a point extremely well made. Now, I love the phrase best practices. And yet, every time I hear that and explore it with an individual, there seems to be a little bit of a different spin. I'm curious as to when you use that phrase and you're encouraging businesses to be zeroed in on that, what exactly do you mean?
Well, it's not only a plan to just retain cost, it's a plan to be sustainable and carry out those practices for the entire lifetime of your business cycle, to identify where your weaknesses are and where they need improvement, and then set a plan to action that you follow, you repeat, you follow, you stay at steady, 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 along with some growth along the way and along with some adjustments. But I think without the foundation of a good strategy and a plan and a roadmap, as you know, most of our engagements will call a VSM, which is a value stream map. Without that map to show you where you are currently and then a projection of your future state, it's hard to stay on a path. And you know, you can correct, and corrective actions are needed along the way. But if you're not focusing and following that, you don't know what to correct as well as you don't know how to go forward.
That's a point well made. And I know this is a tough question to answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Any thoughts on, how often you go back to that map to, reevaluate, to make the corrections if intuitively you are aware that some things are just not working out the way that you had thought they might?
Constantly. I think that every organization, some can look at it more frequently than others. And it's not that it has to be a major meeting, it's just a report out. There's tools that are used, there's visual tools that can be posted, so it's also an involvement of everyone in the organization. It's not just made for the leadership team, it's made for everybody to have an involvement and report as team and take corrective action. But, you know, it could be as simplistic as coding, color coding, red and green. They're posted. And people can see them and visually correct as those actions need. But I think steering committees in an organization, management teams that have meetings monthly, whatever, report outs can be quarterly, but I think constant communication and open dialogue happens when it needs to happen.
I'm with you on that, and I'm really glad to hear you say that. One of the best books that I've read, though, this one goes back many years ago. The title of the book is If It Ain't Broke, Break It. And in so many words, that's exactly what the author was suggesting and encouraging us, the reader, to do. Is that, and I think it's a trap, at least in my experiences of many business owners falling into, is that because it's been working this well for a period of time, whatever that period of time is, that there isn't a reason to go back and reevaluate and take a look at. But I'm hearing from you that you feel that, we need to put it under the microscope on at least a semi-regular basis.
Yeah, well, I don't know how you can apply any advanced or innovative practices in your business if you don't do that. You know, all businesses can remain consistent, but the world around them isn't remaining consistent. So if you're not looking at that, you're not being in tune to what else can be out there. No matter how productive or you can, in a manufacturing concern, you can adjust your inventory, you can do better throughput, but you can't. You also have to see what else is going on in the marketplace. There's other factors. What's the market telling you? What are people making that are, your competitors? So without doing that and just staying in place, I don't know how you can.
And you had mentioned again prior to the show starting that this global economy that we are dealing with, it used to be that, and I can even speak to my own industry, when we first started almost 30 years ago, the bulk of our competition was 8491 corridor. Now, those days are long gone. I have competition literally all over the world that have the ability, because of technology, to compete with a client here in Connecticut the same way that I'm competing for that business with that client here in Connecticut. So how do you encourage those manufacturers that you serve to be able to stay on top of remaining competitive and knowing what their competition is about?
Well, I could say that, sometimes networking groups, resources, other resources that are in your local community, in your state, can provide the market intelligence, the pathways to help some of these companies move to the next level if they do not have that capability or thought process inside, but they're poised for growth and they're poised to be able to do this. It's some outreach. There's a ton of networking organizations for manufacturing that are in the state of Connecticut. You have to find them. You have to be a little bit proactive. You have to want to move yourself. But there's a lot of information, a lot of resources that are out there if you don't have it internally, too. That's not really an excuse that you don't have that resource inside. I mean, we can find that in production. We can find that in most small businesses today. They're running without internally in operations a quality person that's full time. In a service industry, they might not have a human resource person on time, but they partner with other people. They use outside service providers. So opportunities exist. There's really not a reason why. Again, I go back to what is the plan and what's the thought to say I cannot keep remaining to do just this because the world is changing.
Which makes a lot of sense. We've had the opportunity in the industry that I'm in or specific to my business, work with several dealerships in the automotive industry. And one of the things about that industry that I do admire, and this has been going on as far back as we've been in business, is they have what's referred to as 20 dealer groups. So let's say a Toyota dealer group here or Toyota dealership here in Connecticut will align themselves in this 20 dealer group with Toyota dealers all over the country. And they'll get together 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a year to do, in so many words, what you've just described, to compare notes, to see what's working in Arkansas as opposed to here in Connecticut, and really, share trade secrets, both in hiring and in firing and new model lines and service department. And it seems that it really has served the dealers that we've worked with very well, because often when they will come back from those 20 dealer group meetings, they've got a notebook's worth of ideas and motivation that they're ready to implement. Is there something along those lines that exists in the world of manufacturing, Bonnie?
Well, there are. There are the national associations such as NAM. There's SME. And they serve purposes for different levels of and interests within the manufacturing community, whether you're an OEM or you're a supplier. Also locally, there's the manufacturing organizations that you can belong to. They're set up. There's many of them in Connecticut. There's New Haven. There's in the Waterbury area, and then there used to be. There's hardly one. There's one remaining cluster that's called a metal cluster that's still a small group. There's the aerospace components manufacturers. So there's groups that are by what sector of the market that they're doing. But I'm on this committee that we're doing some benchmarking and practices in advanced manufacturing at a national level per states, which is part of the National Governors Association. And one of our topics of discussion for innovative practices and how to advance manufacturing is how do the groups work and benefit in an ecosystem that is truly innovated. You need networks to do this. And what we're looking at right now is we have a lot of networks in Connecticut. Many of them are vertically lined and have been formed in the past to serve that particular sector. But as the global economy has changed, we're finding that some of these networks are doing better if they've opened up and added different business sectors and different components to help them become more innovative.
Wonderful.
So instead of just the groups that you mentioned, like the automobile associations that share practices just within their industry, we're finding that the true states that have great innovative practices and that are growing businesses have networks that involve other professionals, service industries, a mixture, the culture piece of it, the professional piece from accounting to law so they can help say, how do I get to here to bring out a patent, to get a new product out to market, exporting advice. So besides sharing best practices of just what someone does, of what they manufacture, it's great to have a more broader network that'll bring in all the facilitative skills of running a business and taking the whole business practice to a next level.
That's exciting. I love that concept very much. So we got a little bit sidetracked. I'll take full responsibility in this moment. I'd like to explore just a little bit of, your background and what brought you to CONNSTEP and some of the things that you did prior to, jumping on board.
Sure. I'm an accountant. I'm a CPA by background,
Okay.
so manufacturing was not my background in training, but business was. So I was brought to the organization in a CFO capacity originally, and as things happened, my predecessor was leaving the organization. The opportunity to intern as the director there came up, and I was appointed by the board for 6 months to intern, and then I got very attached to the job in that 6 months and applied for it. And I have to say that coming from a service industry background and serving in public accounting, I had some manufacturing clients, but the perspective that I get from this side of the desk is much different. This is on their operation, on their processes, on what they're doing, how to run the business, and the financial piece, certainly as it's important, is only one piece of that equation. We're looking at the business model, we're looking at their workforce and everything that makes up that process. So that's how I got here.
That's great. That's great. And you've been on board now for, I think you said 8 years. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
I've been with the organization for 8 years and in my capacity for 5.
So let's migrate back a little bit. It sounds like, and you and I again discussed prior to the show that, and I used the hypothetical that if we did a focus group of 50 individuals off the street and asked them their thoughts on the vitality of manufacturing going on here in the state of Connecticut, my speculation on that is that we would have received a lot of negative response from a number of those individuals that we did the man on the street or woman on the street interview with. Is that also your obviously based on your knowledge of the marketplace, how do you see manufacturing being viewed right now here in the state of Connecticut?
Well, certainly there's statistics. There's been surveys. I know that you had Bonnie Stewart on from CBIA, and she certainly has a plethora of information on what's being said out there, and it has been negative. We haven't seen job growth in 20 years. There's been a decline. There's been a business climate that has been reported that it's not so business friendly. We do know that the tax rates are high here, and manufacturers have felt that they have not got a lot of support and help. But in saying that, I've also heard over the past 12 months, 18 months, that we've seen progress. Results have not happened in some of these same manufacturers that are reporting this out, but there is certainly a momentum, and there's a change, and there is a deliberate approach to make change that's come from the administration and the heads of the state agencies. The latest job bill speaks to that. It was very heavily supported for both training and initiatives for manufacturers. So we're on a really clear path, and I've seen change by that, and I've heard some positive talk come from the manufacturers, and so I think perception is changing.
And how is that rolling out, to the individual businesses? How are you seeing that unfolding in that way?
Well, I can say that if we're talking about state-supported programs, there's a few new programs that are out there. There's funding from the Manufacturing Assistance Act. There's a real look through right now from both DECD, Department of Labor, of where the training dollars are coming, where they were, how to use them properly. We saw that there were 3 awards to the 3 new community colleges to build manufacturing programs that are a model of an existing program that's working out there now. There's certification programs that are going on for training, so certainly there's a lot of work in workforce development. There's also programs out there for innovation. There's a team in Connecticut right now that's working on a innovation ecosystem, and that's going to address both all businesses, but entrepreneurial and startup, as well as what we're looking at called stage 2 companies, which will address the issues of businesses that are here and surviving, and a manufacturer who has been following good continuous improvement and is a really strong opportunity to take advantage of some programs to say, okay, now how do we help you compete more, and how do we get you to the next piece of innovation, whether that be new product out to market, some exporting. Um, so I think there's a lot of things that are going on, and the movement is moving in the right direction.
That's exciting to hear. And certainly, I have a number of questions based on what you were kind enough to just share. And the first one is, and some of it is motivated by our viewers and listeners, how does that translate to job opportunities for those? I mean, because you hear often in this state, you hear both sides of it. You hear that, one, there's not enough jobs, but I often hear from some of the clients that my business serves that we cannot find qualified people.
Sure.
So how is that unfolding for us as well?
Well, I think as the programs that I mentioned, that there's been opportunities for the community colleges to build these programs. There's an awareness that is being promoted that these jobs are clean. They are well paying. That's been a fact for a number of years, that they're a higher paying job than in the service industry. They're more there's technology now that is more fun, and I mean that in a good way, of fun and exciting for youth entering into this business. It's not old and stodgy. It's has more attractiveness to do it. So then there's many of campaigns to try to promote this, but um, we can't be the answers for all of it. A lot of that has to come from the students that are entering these programs, and have to come from the families themselves. And I think that goes from, guidance in the school system and parenting to say, what are the capabilities of my child, and where are the opportunities for them? And maybe these are, some more coaching that can come from that end as well.
So when you say the families, you mean the moms and dads
Sure.
of the students that are looking for career opportunities and helping to point them in?
Sure. I think that if you asked most parents today if they have one or two children in high school, do they want to have them go into the manufacturing world? I bet you their answer is no. I need them to go into something other that doesn't seem, because there's a little bit of a stigma that goes along with it. But manufacturing has far advanced, and there's a lot of change, and there are great opportunities.
It
So
sounds to me, though, however, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but that some of that really is going to be incumbent upon manufacturers and the associations to be able to change that perception. Because once again, I'm a firm believer that most moms and dads, let alone the kids, maybe even the guidance counselors, are still thinking this is not the state if you're looking to get a job in manufacturing at this point in time. So I think there needs to be, without telling anybody to do anything, there needs to be a education program out there that really helps to raise the bar of awareness that these things are being turned around.
sure, and I think it's equally important that some of those statistics show that there's job opportunities. That
Big time.
it's good to say there's exciting programs and degrees to be earned, and then when you're completed, you're not finding anywhere to work.
Gainful
So,
employment.
right. And so I think that's an important message to come out. I think there's also some programs to support just what you said. How are the manufacturers themselves to do more with internships, and open up their shops and bring in and do some training that used to be done many years ago at a different level. And of course, there's all ramifications that go along with that, from insurance regulations and other legislation. But there are still, I was with a client on last Friday that's going to be getting some money to do that through a state program, and is willing to have training and bring in some machinery and do some on-site training with students. So again, it's, we're twofold with that problem. We're how do we fill those existing jobs today, and how do we change the culture to build the requirements that are going to come down the road in the future?
I can speak with authority. My company has been involved in internship programs for almost the entire 30 years that we've been in business, and almost without exception, every single semester we end up having to turn young men and women down because there's only so many that we can handle. And all we've done is we've made a point of keeping our listings with the individual colleges up to date. But when those kids come in, it is rewarding. It's win-win across the board. They come in. I am, including the interns that we have with us this semester, I am always impressed at how brilliant they are, how hardworking, the initiative they want to take, and invariably, I would think with rare exception, when they leave at the end of that semester, they have a really clear vision of what, in our case, the advertising and production community industry is all about. So if manufacturers are tuning in this evening, which we hope some of them are, if you're not involved in internship programs, then you're going to get an endorsement from me that it is an amazing way to find young, forward-thinking men and women that will get on board and really become a significant player for you, even if it's just for 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really is an exciting way to support it. So, and we've just got a few minutes before we take a break, if I'm not mistaken, Brian. It's nice to have you back, by the way. You feel that 2012 looks good for us here in the state of Connecticut?
I do. I think we're on a good path. Certainly we have a lot of road ahead of us, but I feel that it looks good for setting direction, and we've at least been listening for the past year of hearing what the problems are, and now it'll be the feat of putting some actions to those plans and addressing them. But I think the momentum, the start, and the focus on that the perception needs to be changed and that we are in some difficult times has been started, and we're undertaking it right now.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, folks, I want to remind you that we have Bonnie Del Conte with us this evening. She is president and CEO of CONNSTEP, based here out of Connecticut. We're going to take a short break. Before we do, I want to read a commercial from one of our sponsors. That's centralctdental.com. It's the home of Doctors Camp, Zambor, and Lupini. If there's a serious issue or just a routine checkup, there is really nowhere else to go but to go see centralctdental.com. They're easy to get to. They're on the Plainville-Farmington line. You can call them at 860-747-5761. That's 860-747-5761. Or make an appointment online at centralctdental.com. We'll be back in a few minutes. You're listening to Open for Business. Thanks.
Budwitz & Meyerjack PC is a large Connecticut-based CPA firm with offices in Cheshire and Farmington, Connecticut. Large enough to handle engagements of enterprises with annual revenues in excess of $100 million, yet small enough to cater to smaller businesses and individual clients who expect personalized attention from partners and staff. Client service is the cornerstone of our practice. Our clients have a fixed fee for their audit and tax work. What this means to the client is we're approachable. Personal communication and client services make for strong relationships. Budwitz & Meyerjack, certified public accountants.
OnTheHorn.com.
Sandits Travel for business and leisure. We'll take you there. Sandits Travel has been proudly serving Connecticut since 1960. That's over 50 years. And we're ready for another 50 years of superior service. Whether you prefer to come in, call in, or log on, we invite you to explore how efficient, diverse, and fun it is to book through Sandits Travel. Save your money and your time with us. Sandits Travel. We'll take you there.
At home, work, or your favorite coffee shop, if there's a Wi-Fi connection, get on the Horn. Hartford's heart and soul. OnTheHorn.com.
Hey folks, welcome back to Open for Business. Again, I want to remind you that our guest this evening is Bonnie Del Conte, President and CEO of CONNSTEP. Before we get back to Bonnie, though, we have one more commercial to read from one of our loyal sponsors. That's Deepwater Seafood of Avon, just for the halibut. Deepwater is Farmington Valley's freshest seafood. That's a Brian joke. He forces me to say it. Or he says he won't pay me, even though I don't get paid anyway. Anyway, Deepwater Seafood of Avon, they will work with you and your schedule. If you call ahead at 860-676-9657 or fax in 860-677-2281, they'll have the order ready for you. You can pick it up after work. Their hours, just in case you're wondering, is Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. And on Saturdays, yes, they're open on Saturdays, folks, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Now, here's what's on the menu. There's sea scallops. There's fresh oysters. There's fish and chips, soups, bisques, chowders. If you're having a party, they'll have a paella for 12 that includes a salad and everything that you need. It's made with spicy chicken, sausage, scallops, shrimps, and halibut. Just for the hell of it. It's Deepwater Seafood of Avon. Bonnie, thanks for being here. This was a fun first half hour, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
So much fun.
So you just depressed me. I want you to know that. And I know it wasn't your intention, but Rebecca from your office was kind enough to send some notes. And I asked you a question on it because I had never heard this phrase before. What's the silver tsunami? Would you mind sharing with our viewers and listeners what the silver tsunami is?
And I'm sure she shared that because she's not worried as we are about the silver tsunami. So I have to thank her for that.
Yeah,
tomorrow.
right.
I don't know a lot about it, but what I think that it is that as it's a healthcare issue that many people, as we approach the statistics are when we turn 65, there's going to be 10,000 people retiring, becoming sick with chronic illness as this generation because we have an older population. So within the next few decades, we're going to have many, many health and chronic issues and a retiring population. So the tsunami of silver.
There you go. Now I understand. I'm sure I want to understand, but I do. So tell us a little bit about, I know we explored at the beginning of the show, but I'd like to go back to it again, thanks to Rebecca and her silver tsunami. She talked about relationships that you folks have with local and federal resources, and I'd like to hear a little bit more about that because I'm convinced that our listeners and viewers are interested as well.
Sure. As I mentioned earlier, we're a 501c3, so we generate our own revenues from our projects that we deliver, but we are also supported gratefully through the state of Connecticut from the Department of Economic and Community Development. We have some funds that are in the general fund, which helps us to reduce the costs of what we do for our services out there. So we are very competitive to a for-profit organization, so we can offer. We're the alternative for the manufacturer that is not can afford to go out for this for-profit organization, but we feel that we give the same value of services, if not better, for a lot less in fees because of the support. We are also the Connecticut MEP Center, and that stands for Manufacturing Extension Partnership. And that is a partnership through the Department of Commerce from NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and that program is focused solely for manufacturing extension to reach out and help the small to medium-sized manufacturers with whatever processes and resources we need to give them to make them competitive and innovative to compete in today's economy. There are 60 centers, 60 plus or minus centers now in the United States. So it's a federal program, and Connecticut is this MEP program. So again, the funding that comes through that Department of Commerce vein is to help us also put these practices out to the manufacturers. So the benefit about that is that you talked about sharing in best practices earlier before in that automotive sector piece of our conversation. We can tap into the resources with our other MEP centers. So if we have a client that is in Massachusetts or has subsidiaries or other divisions, we can contact our MEP center that's in Massachusetts to provide and help them service that. Or if we don't have a particular skill set that we have on staff and we third party that out or use a service provider, we can reach out into the system if there's a specific need and call on somebody from another MEP center and bring that skills or expertise into our manufacturer here.
Huh. Now I'm curious. What? How many manufacturing firms right now in the state of Connecticut? And
Well,
you don't have to give me the exact number,
yeah,
but approximate?
I think we're probably somewhere around 4,700.
4,700.
Mm-hmm.
And where's that number today as it where it would have been 5 years ago?
Over 5,000. Yeah,
Okay.
probably in 2009 we were hovering around 5,000, few hundred more a little earlier than that.
And what do you attribute the decline? I mean, that's not a significant decline, but it's probably hovering in the 10%-ish kind of thing.
Yeah, a lot of them were probably small businesses that either were merged or acquired into, a larger conglomerate. Some of them did not sustain for not changing or improving, or had a product that was not applicable in the market any longer. Some have moved out of state. The other things that are perception and some reality for. Certainly not what I believe are for a better workforce or labor or a skilled workforce, and that's actually been found that many have moved out because of either lesser taxes or a different type of business climate, but certainly not for skilled workforce.
Well, I sense with passion that you feel strongly about Connecticut's workforce in regards to manufacturing. Tell us why.
Well, as I mentioned before, I've been on this panel that's looking at best practices to share, within the United States, and so we've been doing a lot of research. We've had the ability to have some research done for us, and Connecticut is ranked very, very high up there with a skilled workforce. In some studies showed us with some of the better trained workforce in the world, let alone the United States. So I'm quite certain of that, and it does feel good, but it's more accurate than anything else.
See, now I'm going to one more time suggest that we need a public relations campaign. Only reason I say that is that I can't even begin to tell you how many times I've heard from businesses either that my companies work with or that I've become in touch with one form or another that we're really struggling to find quality people, and whether it's manufacturing or whatever the industry is. So you again seem very convinced that the workforce is alive and well and strong. What do we need to do to let the manufacturers, people out there that are considering hiring, let alone the individuals that are graduating school, colleges, et cetera, to, be able to know that, there are opportunities, there's jobs to be had?
Yeah, well, there's that piece of it that the workforce is very trained and skilled here is the workforce that's in place. We do have a shortage of workers that are coming out of the school system right now that are going into manufacturing or do have the proper training. So that's one aspect, and that actually leads to some of the problem because we have a trained workforce. They are also an aging workforce. That was probably Rebecca's silver. Yes, yeah. Besides, and the health issues that are added to that, but so it's this retiring workforce, and you add to it that there's a lot of tribal knowledge that they retain that needs to somehow come back and get transformed into the new workforce. So the workforce that's presently here is very highly trained. Our feat is how to replace that as they are retiring out.
And do you find, I know in the industry that I'm in, it's not unusual to see a great copywriter move from one firm to the next. Is there a fair amount of that goes on in the wonderful world of manufacturing?
It's not historically, it hasn't been that way. I guess if I would think 20 years ago, if I knew someone that worked, say, for the Aetna, they probably had worked for the Travelers, and they probably had worked, yes, that usually happens. It's not quite that frequently. There's a longevity in that. But our fear of that will happen more than it has before as people are retiring and companies are growing or at least retaining jobs, that they're going to be forced to have some of that job shifting, and we know that that really isn't growth; it's just shifting, as you say.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, we discussed this a little bit before the show began, and I believe that the prevailing mindset out there is that manufacturing world, and I also believe that it is changing, but nonetheless prevailing, that the manufacturing world is more for the male side of the gender fence than the female side of the gender fence. And as a daddy of two daughters, it wouldn't be, truth be told, at the top of my list of, hey, you girls could consider a job in manufacturing. But I'm hearing from you that that one is shifting, literally in the numbers, and two, in the perception that more and more women, obviously in some ways, yourself included, are seeing this as a very attractive field and something that, young women on up, are looking as a job opportunity.
Hmm. I guess before I answer that, I'm going to have to ask you why. What is your perception of why you wouldn't promote that, having the two girls? Is it something you never thought of, or is it something that?
That's a really good question. I would think that it would be a combination of things for me. Um, growing up as a creative and having that in my heart and soul, I tend to lean in that direction to begin with. My kids, in their own ways, have in some ways followed in daddy's and in mommy's footsteps as well. But I also believe that's a significant portion of it, because I'm comfortable. I just want my children to be happy and really love what they do. And if they came back to me and said, manufacturing is my life, then I would support it 100%. I mentioned that my former wife has a career in manufacturing, and there's a shot that she's going to be with it for a long time. And I completely support it. But I think a big part of, to succinctly answer your question, is that I have bought into the prevailing winds of manufacturing is, a dying entity here in the state of Connecticut, and any real quality manufacturing jobs are everywhere else, but in these borders.
Yeah, that's probably the answer that I thought, more than that it was a male or female thing. It was probably, do you think that there's a healthy um, future in manufacturing than others? And again, some of the statistics that we still see today, are that they're higher paying jobs. We've talked about skilled workers, so how do we continue that path going forward? And there are many women that are running manufacturing businesses now. Many of the small to medium-sized manufacturers in the state of Connecticut are family-owned businesses. They're here second, third, fourth generation. And as that's changed, we've got fourth-generation women that are doing the same type of jobs, or as skilled, or as educated, or in many cases more capable than the male in the family to run that organization. And as manufacturing has become less dirty in nature and more technologically advanced and precision manufacturing, that the environments are nice, and they're clean, and they're well run, and they're sophisticated, and so the skills to run those companies inside, for the women are up for grabs as much as the male in the family.
As we talked about, much more of an even playing field. And I think that maybe inadvertently you might have hit on something, maybe less for the daddy, though plenty of daddies would feel this way too, but a lot for the mommy. I don't want my little girl in that dirty, ugly, smelly factory. I mean, I'm sorry, and I know that's a stereotype in that moment, and I don't mean it as such, but I have a feeling that there's at least a certain percentage of the parental population out there that's thinking, my kid, my young lady,
Sure.
she's not going into that environment.
Sure, sure. So when some of those perceptions are changed a little bit, and again, we've got a long road here to get some of this changed out there, but I still believe that we're going to continue to make things, and we'll make more things. We've seen such a shift. We call it reshoring. We've had a decade here where, faster, cheaper, better, made outside of the United States was always talked about, and now many manufacturers or OEMs are looking through their supply chain to bring that work back here or reshore it, because there's been defects, quality control issues, quality issues, pricing, shipping, cost of fuel, energy, that it's not much cheaper or making them any more money by doing this, as they have to come back and rework. So that's changing. But we had to go through that process to start coming back again. Sometimes,
It makes sense.
as we've talked to before, when you talked about mission vision, when we were talking earlier of companies that have a strategy, do they change? Well, if they have a plan, they take some detours. That's okay. It's a little off path, but as long as there's corrective action that comes back with it. So I think that's a piece of it that has to get back out, and that'll sort of maybe entice some parents to start thinking differently, or some women who want to enter the business. And there's also, they're guaranteed jobs. You can come out and do some training. You're probably going to get a job. When we just discussed that there's a need for manufacturers at a high level of performance. Um, Whereas, you're coming out of a lot of degrees and programs right now, and there aren't gainful employment for kids coming out of school.
What, if anything, are the individual manufacturers doing to, if you will, establish that public relations campaign that gets that word out? Because, uh, I can't say that I'm the be-all, end-all when it comes to this, because I'm not. But being in the industry that I am, my antenna are perpetually up and listening and paying attention to campaigns and the different medias out there. And I don't, I don't hear, see, feel, sense that the manufacturing world is out there actively recruiting, actively promoting that it's a whole different world. It's a great place for women. The list seems to be in our conversation over the past 45 minutes, a significant list of good news to be able to get out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, the smart ones that I know, and some of our clients are doing that. They're pretty proactive, and they're doing that, and so maybe it's in little pockets. I also see that there's a lot more. There's a lot of collaboration that's going on right now. There's a lot of awareness committees. There's a lot of working together, and it's being shared by the business and industry sector more than ever before. So I can tell you that within 5 years, committees, forums, things that I've been engaged at used to be certain sectors, whether it would be part of, a state-supported agency, or a small resource pocket here of people that are in that vein of that network. They're more broad now, and certainly the voice of business and industry. So, again, if this was your business, or if it's my business, you have to take a stand that you've got to go out there and do it too.
Amen.
In every industry, not just manufacturing, there are those that sit and say, "What can you do for me?" And there's those that can say, "I can take this opportunity and go out and build an empire for myself right now at this time." So that's up to the individual. That's all about the leadership in the organization.
Now, is that something that CONNSTEP also offers? Is one of your services is to help to guide them in marketing, et cetera?
Sure. We actually, two parts to that question. Besides our continuous improvement activities to well round out the enterprise of the business, we have a couple of certificate programs. One is aimed at, we're a train the trainer organization. We're not a consulting firm that goes in there and consults and then comes back in again to fix the problem again in 6 months. We want to keep spreading this inside so they can grow internally with their own resources. So we have a program that brings someone to a lean awareness so they can go and champion some great activities inside the corporation. We also have just recently been building a program called Leadership that's focused at the C level and is learning to lead and lead the organization in a lean fashion.
Great.
And this is specifically some training for them because, leaders are don't they have flaws too of incapabilities that they're not totally all well-rounded, that they're missing some pieces. So this course is it's a 6 half-day session course that addresses this factor. And when you start getting groups of CEOs around the table, and with peer-to-peer
Absolutely.
and that good open discussion happens and great ideas are formulated, just like we talked about the innovation hubs, that's where people need to talk, and that's where best practices and ideas are shared. So we have a leadership program, and then we work with partners to identify some culture issues. Normally when we go in and we'll identify that we're going to help a company. I'm going to tell you it's probably going to be a little bit longer down the road when we start that, because there's going to be culture, steering committee, issues like that, and setting the strategy that are going to come the cart before the horse. I can say that. But yeah, that's why we feel like we're a pretty diverse group, and we're an organization that touches on all facets, and we're not just pointed to a solution. We're pointed to the overall sustainability of a great organization.
So overall sustainability, using that as a segue point and getting a little bit back to you, Bonnie, what do you do to, and I'll use a Covey term, a Stephen Covey term, what do you do to keep your saw sharpened? You know, I get the sense that you're very motivated, very passionate about what you do. You seem to really love the work. Your eyes sparkle when you talk about certain aspects of, you know, your job and career and working with the manufacturers that you do. But, you know, you train the trainer. Who's training the ultimate trainer? Who's keeping you motivated? What are some of the things that you do to, and I know our listeners are, you know, interested in hearing you respond to this.
I can say that I'm sometimes the cobbler story that, you know, my own my own shoes have some holes in them, and I get so wrapped up of what we can do and offer for the client and the manufacturing and the other business space to make them run efficiently that I don't do enough of my own training sometime, and I don't spend enough time making sure that my staff is you know, sometimes I'm a little off course with my own ship.
So I'm here to put your feet to the fire.
You're here to put my feet to the fire, and I look outside as well. This year, you know, we're on our own. We have our own strategic plan. We have our own report outs. We have our own team groups, and sometimes I get busy and I think I'm the exception, that I can go off base, and I have to have a talk with myself at 2 o'clock in the morning and say, you're off track and you're making some mistakes here. I look to some outside consultants as well to come in and sort of, not me the mediator, I always hope that I can have open dialogue with my staff and my team, but to help me get back on track, because I make mistakes. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, you know, God bless, and I mean that sincerely, for the acknowledgement of that. I think that, you know, even the best coach out there, he or she, needs a good coach to help them be a better coach, in so many words. And so it is important for us to, and I love Covey's phrase, sharpen the saw. You know, we can't be performing at our best level unless our individual saw is as sharp as can be. And the only way you do that is that me time, at least as far as I'm concerned. And in some circles it's viewed as selfish, but I don't think that selfish is always a bad thing. I think that, you know, you can gain skills and insight and wisdom by taking, you know, certain blocks of time, whatever that might mean to you, and going within. And whether within is relying on mentors that you have, or reading, or meditating, or whatever it might be that helps to get you back to center and realizing, here are my strengths, here are my weaknesses, what do I need to do to minimize one and maximize the other. I mean, it really, I think, is important.
Yeah, I have to say that as much as I said that there's great momentum that's happening in the state, you want to be involved in all of it, you know, and sometimes I just have to step back and say, okay, today I have to focus on this, and I can't give my 2 cents opinion or time on anything else because it's taken me off track. But it's very easy to do. That's the, you know, the bad part, what might happen for me in the organization internally for that moment. But the good part is, as we said, there's good momentum, and, you know, let's face it, we're in the most adverse times of, you know, not just Connecticut, the whole United States, not just manufacturing in Connecticut, manufacturing all over. So, you know, how do you take, and one of my team members always said, you have a way of taking those lemons and making lemonade, you know, and I think that's what you have to do, because those are also, on the serious side, time of great opportunity.
I could not agree with you more. So using that, and we're getting near the end of the time, and one more time I want to remind our listeners and viewers that we have with us tonight Bonnie Del Conte, President and CEO of CONNSTEP. And if you're not following us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, then we want you to, and we want you to do it right now. So one more time, that crystal ball is out. Where do you see CONNSTEP in 1 year from now, in 5 years from now? What are your goals and visions for CONNSTEP as an organization?
I see us as providing more support on the innovation side, the growth side, services that the organization for, over a decade ago would have looked at more soft-skilled and not point solutions, more in-depth, having breadth inside a business of looking and addressing their issues just like the world is, more on a global capacity, not thinking about one thing, being focused and concentrating, yes, and following something through, but continuously thinking of new ideas, innovative practices, and moving to the next level. And it doesn't have to be that much of a divergence to some of the companies. We talk about innovation and some support that we can give to companies for top-line growth. That doesn't have to do a 180. It doesn't mean for every manufacturer, let's change how we produce this and open up a new market here. It could be the change of a process. That's innovation. Helping them not only become more efficient, just doing it differently, or finding a new market for that existing product, or turning around saying, hey, we make this today and it can be used for something else as well. It doesn't have to be just, cutting edge that everybody thinks about. It's taking what their capabilities are and just making them a little smarter and better for a new, place in the market. That's where I see us doing. And our mission really is to be the true business trusted advisor. So they call us for everything. We had a couple of calls a few weeks ago when someone called and said, someone called me at a different resource center to do something. They said, call CONNSTEP. I said to them, call CONNSTEP. If they approve it, I know it's good for my business. That's what we want to do. We want a client to say, counsel with them if that's good, because they know my business and they know our strategy and they're helping us on a plan. That's where I see us going as an organization.
That's great. That's a great response. So if any of our viewers and listeners need to reach you or reach CONNSTEP, what's their best way to do that?
Oh, they can reach us at constep.org. They can reach us on LinkedIn. They can do the old-fashioned way and call the phone.
Okay. What is that number, just in case we have some old-fashioned viewers?
That's 860-529-5001, and they can always call the main directly and get any one of us on a direct line. I and all of our team members talk to everybody directly.
That's great.
Yeah.
Bonnie, thank you so much for being here. Again, folks, we had Bonnie Del Conte with us this afternoon, President and CEO of CONNSTEP. Thanks again, Bonnie. Have a great year. We'll talk to you again. Maybe we'll bring you back sometime. Would you like to do that?
I'd love it.
Okay,
yes.
Great. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week, folks. Brian, you feel better because you got boo-boo head. We'll talk to you soon.
Budwitz & Meyerjack PC is a large Connecticut-based CPA firm with offices in Cheshire and Farmington, Connecticut. Large enough to handle engagements of enterprises with annual revenues in excess of $100 million, yet small enough to cater to smaller businesses and individual clients who expect personalized attention from partners and staff. Client service is the cornerstone of our practice. Our clients have a fixed fee for their audit and tax work. What this means to the client is we're approachable. Personal communication and client services make for strong relationships. Budwitz & Meyerjack, certified public accountants.
Sandits Travel for business and leisure. We'll take you there. Sandits Travel has been proudly serving Connecticut since 1960. That's over 50 years. And we're ready for another 50 years of superior service. Whether you prefer to come in, call in, or log on, we invite you to explore how efficient, diverse, and fun it is to book through Sandits Travel. Save your money and your time with us. Sandits Travel. We'll take you there.
New, now, and loud. On thehorn.com.